I think I'm here. Yeah. All right. I am so excited to be here. And Melissa talked about messaging me when she finally decided that she was going to invite me. And I was at a boot camp working out, which I did like twice. So don't think that that was a big normal thing. But I was doing push-ups and I saw my phone light up and I was like, oh my gosh, like, is this happening? Like, yes. So I run home to my husband, Clayton. And I was like, help me write a message back to Melissa because I want to say yes, but I don't want to sound too excited. And I want it to be, spiritual, but like also a definite yes. And so this is our method whenever we have to send important emails, is he types it for me. And whenever he thinks I should change the wording, he puts it in all caps. So he starts this message and he was like, hi, Melissa, yes, I want to, all caps, sounds like you're yelling, share what I know with your church. And I feel really called, and like all these words that was just like really overwhelming if you're reading it. And he goes for the next paragraph and he hits send. And I just like pulled back and I was like, she's never gonna have me there. This is not okay. And Clayton went and laid on the other floor, or in the other room on the floor, because he knew what just happened. Thankfully, I'm here. So Melissa didn't take that as me yelling at her or sharing what I know, because if anything, I feel like this topic, the simple life, is so hard. And I think this weekend, that's a retreat in the sense that we can withdraw a little bit from our lives and hopefully get a new look on simplicity. But it's not a checklist. It's not something we can do, but a continual place of the heart. And so I don't have it figured out, but I'll share with you what I've learned the past months and that I've wrestled with this idea of the simple life. But just so you know a little bit about me, first, I know you have the bio, but I grew up in Springfield. I was best friends with Anna Peck all the way through. And so in 6th grade, Anna could go to the youth group, and so I'd come with her because my church didn't start till 7th grade. And so I was so jealous, and I'd come with Anna, and my family lives a mile from the church. And so whenever I was trying to be athletic, I'd run to this church and run home. Again, that wasn't very often. And then now I went to Baylor University, and then I stayed around for seminary. So I still live in Waco, Texas, and I'm resident chaplain down there. And it's a new program, and what that means is that it's an incarnational ministry in the dorm. And so Jesus came and walked among us. My husband and I have gone and lived among the freshmen. 600 of them for our first year of marriage, and it's in a 400 square foot apartment. And our kitchen is in our living room. Our TV sits on our refrigerator. And it's talk about closeness for your first year of marriage in a not fun way. But it's been really fun. And I think a lot of it has shaped this idea of needing simplicity when there's no quiet, when you're on call all the time. And girls knock on your door, and some of them have real problems. Other ones, I'm like, just go get a coffee. Just do your homework. And so it's this idea of how do you wrestle with that and see that it is ministry, but also like the day in and day out work that you do as students. And Clayton, we got married 8 months ago, and we knew we'd be moving into this dorm right away. And we had a month or two right before we moved into the dorm, and it was so fun. It was awesome, and I feel like I learned the most about him in those months. And probably the first couple of days, I realized, 1, he doesn't like mornings. 2, he cannot find his keys ever. That song was very relevant. And 3, he needs food. If he's tired, he needs food. Morning, he needs food. If he can't think, he needs food. And so beginning to wrestle with this, there's multiple mornings where I'm like, this is not going to work. He's not going to continue unless I have food like sitting next to his bed. So there's this morning, and it sticks in my mind because I was like, I can't do this. But we overslept. And so when we finally realized that we overslept, we jumped up and immediate panic. And we only had 1 set of keys for his car. My car was dead because we hadn't jumped it from the week before. So we're like living on 1 car, and then he can't find his keys. And then so we're like, okay, I'm thinking all I have to do is get him food. So if we can get him food, he'll be able to function so we can make better decisions. And so what we do is we go through the drive-thru at McDonald's. And I don't know if you've been to McDonald's lately, but they have this new slogan where it's like, thank you for your order, see you tomorrow. And I remember that day being so angry, being like, you will not see me tomorrow. The reason we're in this drive-thru is because we're having a horrible day. And so then we get Clayton's coffee, and I'm thinking, if he can just drink his coffee, we're good to go. McGriddle coffee, then we're happy. Boys are happy. And so I drop him off at work, and the coffee is still sitting in the console because there hasn't even been time for it to get get cool enough. And so this idea of the simple life, where I was like, we have to change something. So we put in processes. So keys go in one place, papers, mail go in one place. I know this is probably like old news to y'all, but being newlywed, we're like, we need a process. So then we got our processes. Life is still chaotic. So then we move into the dorm. I'm like, we have too much stuff. So I literally gave away tons of stuff. I text the girls in the hall saying, come get our stuff. Like, I'm tired of this stuff. And then we went through this schedule thing, and I'm like, I can't tell girls to stop coming and talking to me, but I eliminated as many conversations with those girls as I could. I'd shut my door more often, and I was just trying to find this place of simplicity where all of a sudden I wanted just to go to bed at night and feel like it was a good day. And so I found it wasn't a schedule. It wasn't too much stuff, because to make a 400 square foot apartment livable, you just don't need anything in there. And so you have to have certain things. So it's not a schedule. It's not relationship problems. So what is it? And it's not I'm wanting 1 + 1 = 2, or I want shallow relationships that don't need me and vice versa. That's not the simple life. So it's not any of these things. So what is it? And I think the video hit it right on. When I say I want the simple life, I'm wanting peace and contentment. And I've wrestled with that idea. Is that really what the simple life is? What is it that what I'm saying? And what happens is we say, if I can fix this, then. Or if my husband treats me like this, then I'll be happy. Or if my child would stop doing this, I will be content then. Or if I had a better paying job, I wouldn't have to worry anymore. But what all those statements actually are is saying, if I can control this, then I'll be content. If I can control this, then I'll have peace. And what happens is that we become God. And I don't know how your resume looks, but I'm not omniscient. I'm not sovereign. I'm definitely not all-knowing. I have issues with forgiving. I'm not always a nice person. I don't know all things. And so I'm a really bad God. But a God is supposed to lead. He's supposed to guide. He's supposed to see the bigger picture. And so when I say, if I'm God, I can have peace or contentment, and God is saying, no, I hold that. And so I think the other tendency, instead of looking to ourselves to be God, we begin to look to other things. And so if we say, I can't control my kids because teenage years are bad for them, can't control them, so I'm going to go control another area. I'm going to dominate volunteering because I can't control everything, but I'm going to go do really well right there. And if I'm recognized there, then I'm good to go. Or we see this a lot with kids. So maybe my husband doesn't treat me the way that I think I should, so I'm going to raise really good kids. Or my job, I can really do well there. You know, no one else except my little career, only the people there know what I'm doing, so I can pour everything into there. But that doesn't work either. And so what God is saying is that there's one God. And so the verse for the weekend is to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, and strength. And the first time we see that is in Deuteronomy chapter 6. And right before that, there's a verse that we're going to camp out on tonight. And what it says is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." And that's not a radical idea. I mean, I don't have the Trinity figured out, but I can get that God is one, that there's one God. But if you think about who this verse was written towards, it was the Israelites who lived during a time period where there was a pantheon of gods, meaning there's a God of the sea, there's a God of the ocean, and a God of the sky, the God of the crops. And so for God to come along and say, no, there's one God, the Israelites would have been weird. This is like nothing they had ever seen before. But God to say, you need something from this area of your life, there's one God. He's God of that. You need something here, one God. And this was so important to the Israelites. There's something called the Shema. And what the Shema was a prayer that the Israelites would have said every morning, every evening. And the verses are what this conference is about. It's, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your strength." And so the first part, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." That's our why. That's why, the reason that we love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, and strength. So that's why we're going to camp out there. And you know, like a 4-year-old, they're always like, why? Why are we eating dinner? Why are we going here? Why? Why? And so I want you in that same way to ask why. Because we're going to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, and strength. And tomorrow we're going to focus on that. And that's the simple life. But why? And that's because the Lord our God is one. And before we think that it's a really pagan idea for them to worship the God of the sea or to have multiple gods, we do that all the time. And just a few examples, they would have the god of fertility. And so now there's Viagra and there's tons of other options there. But basically, the god of fertility for a woman during that time period is if a woman had a male child that gave her worth and status in society. Thankfully, things have changed, so that's not our main goal. But for a woman back then, barrenness was a really tough issue, and still is. But during that time period, it's an identity thing. And so that's why we see all the issues in the Old Testament with the sisters, and you always see the need for a child. And so it gave them worth. And so we don't pray to the fertility God, but we might pray and pour ourselves into other things that give us identity, in the sense of maybe we pour ourselves into appearance and working out, or maybe we pour ourselves into our spouse, expecting all of a sudden a good marriage to reflect a good life, or we put it into a job or a career. And so we don't pray to the God of fertility, but in the same way that we're looking for a job to satisfy us, a spouse to satisfy us, we're praying to another God. We're putting our sacrifices, our time, our energy to another God. Another god they had was the god of agriculture. And so I did have the names of these real gods, but I couldn't pronounce them. So that's the god of agriculture. Yeah, and so basically, if it didn't rain and your crops failed, it was because the god was mad at you. So you'd go take sacrifices to the temple to please him. Or if you needed, if there's a drought, all of a sudden, what did we do to anger the God? And so God comes along and says, you need rain, you need sustainability, one God, me. And so we don't have that God, obviously. Anyone talk to the God of agriculture lately? No. But that's the God of financial security. And so we don't go make, supplications to the God of fertility, but how often we turn right around with worry or an anxiety. And so instead of going to the one God, he says there's one, we allow these other things. And I think if we were to say we have gods, we'd be like, no, we're Christian women. We don't have other gods. But when we have anxiety and worry about things that God says one God for, that's what we're doing. And there's also the God of merriment, so joy, of happiness. And so the Israelites, if they were upset, the people of that time, they'd go and make supplications to the God of merriment to be happy. And now what they're doing is they're looking for an escape. So how often do we turn to exercise? I wish that was my thing I turned to. Or eating, or sleeping, or shopping. All these other things that are saying, I'm down, I need joy, so I'm going to turn to you in this moment of weakness. There's a girl I was meeting with, a girl from the dorm, and all the girls just went through Rush. And so the dorm is so loud. But there are a lot of girls who didn't get into a sorority or decided not to go with one. I was meeting with one girl who dropped out of the process because the group that she wanted didn't invite her back. So she came, and she brought 2 purses. She was like, I want to show you what I bought. She's like, this is the purse that I got on Saturday because I was really sad. So I drove to Dallas, which is an hour and a half away, to go shopping. And I'm like, that's a pretty purse. Good. And so she's like, but this is the other one that I got, and I just can't decide which one I like more. But I got this one on Sunday because I still wasn't feeling better. And then she starts listing off all these different issues in her life where she went and bought a new Coach purse. I don't know how many Coach purses you need, but she had a ton. So I was like, basically, you're carrying around a testimony of your bad day every time you go shopping. But that's the way that she learned to cope with anything hard. And so these gods, we have them now. And so in the same way that the Israelites would have heard, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's radical for today too. Because even though we can come to church, we can worship one God and say thou and thou only, What do we do in moments that are hard, or when we're worn out, or when we're financially worried, or when we're just tired? And God is saying, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." He's saying, "Listen, women of Campbell, God is one." And he's saying, "You need worth? You are my beloved, my chosen one. You need financial security? Look at the birds." Or you need merriment? Come to me, you who are weary. This word says so many different things, saying, "I am one." And so this idea of the simple life, I've wrestled with it a lot. Is it a simple concept, or is it a complicated concept? How have we gotten so far away from it? Why are our lives so complicated? And I think it comes from when it's a simple truth. There's one God. And when we turn and try to be God, we're striving. We're turning to all these different things. And that makes life so complicated. Because even though there's one God, we allow these other things to compete with the one God. And so the simple life, it's simple in the sense that there's one God, but how do we return to that? How do we slow life down? And it's almost become a cliche verse, but I think it's where we need to camp out tonight. And it's the verse, "Be still and know that I am God." We've heard it so many times. We're just like, be still and know that I'm God. Be still. But I wonder if instead of it being step 1, be still, step 2, know that I'm God, if instead it's more of a dual command, like one precedes the other. So be still and you will know that I am God. So in order to know that I am God, we have to be still. That's so contrary to everything in us, because we are doers, we are workers, we are servers, we are mothers, we are wives, we are employed. Like, we all have different things that we do. And so to be still, that's so backwards. We're supposed to go die to self and serve everyone. But God is saying, be still and know. And that concept of being still, the word originates, it's saying loosen your grip. And so, I just envision, a really tight arm striving for something, and being still just means let go. So be still. Another version of that verse says, cease striving. It's saying stop doing. Stop being God. Return to one God. When I first came up, I was talking about going through that drive-through and just getting the sustenance that we need, just enough to get by, because you have to have something to start your day. But I wonder if a picture of being still looks maybe like we go to McDonald's and we sit inside. You take time to order your coffee, your McGriddle, which I don't understand how that's a thing, a pancake bun. It's so good. So you get your McGriddle and you go in and sit down. And you still have business to do for the day. But instead of getting your sustenance, the thing that you need to carry you through the morning, if we sit down inside, and every phone call we make out, it's from McDonald's. Everything we need to do, we run out and then we come right back. It's home base. It's safe. It's the place that we start. It's the place that we end. And that's indwelling. It's dwelling in McDonald's, but it's dwelling in the heart of God. And it's a place of stillness. And even though chaos can be all around us, when we're in McDonald's, when we're in the stillness of God, it's simple. Have you ever seen the older people that get up and go to McDonald's every morning? My grandparents do that. They look so happy. And when I'm driving through or running in, I'm in such a hurry, but they are just there for the day. They don't have anything they're worried about. But how much more if that could be a state of our heart? That we don't have to do anything, and if we're gone, it's just for a moment, and we can take our coffee with us and just come back and get a refill to dwell in the house of God. And I thought about this analogy several times, and I was like, IHOP, is that better? But no, it's going to be McDonald's, because that's where the old people go. So you're just going to spend there all day long. They get up and go at 6, right when it opens, and they have their little posse. I'm like, that's so America. I love it. Being still, there's another girl that I meet with regularly. She's always needing something. She's a freshman, 18 years old, and I don't know what her life is like. At first, I thought it was just a horrible life. I was like, poor little soul. First, she was really homesick, which is a very common problem and very valid. But then she was worried about fall break, and then she was worried about her first test, and then Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then Rush, then her roommate, and all of a sudden I'm like, you are worried about whatever is next. And I started to ask her, I was like, how is Thanksgiving? How is fall break? And she's like, oh, it was fine. But as soon as it was out in the future, it was the scariest thing. So she would just look a little ahead and realize that's what I'm going to worry about. And it was kind of ridiculous talking to her, but I was like, I do that too. When we get right up to that moment when something's about to happen, no matter what it is, we can get anxious, get worried. But then it comes and goes, and do we ever stop and say, wow, that went well? No, because we're already focusing on the next thing that we're worried about. And so I think this idea of being still, and so the goal is to know God, the simple life, be with Him. So being still, it's living in the now, in the present moment. Because if we look back, that can cloud today. If we are focused on tomorrow, it's clouding today. And today is the only day that's today. And I don't know why that's hard to wrap our minds around, but we are already thinking about the next step. How early do I have to get here tomorrow? Or how early can I get here and the food still be really good? And so we're thinking about tomorrow. But being still doesn't mean be still tomorrow. It doesn't mean be still yesterday. It means be still now. And it's the only time that we can be and dwell in the house of the Lord. There's a chapter that, while really thinking about being still and dwelling with the Lord, and it's Psalm 84. I think it's almost a chapter that's worth memorizing, because are we good at dwelling places? No, we're all over the place. And so I'm going to close by reading this chapter. And as I read, if you have your Bibles, feel free to read along. And if not, maybe just close your eyes. There's a lot of imagery that helps picture what's going on. And maybe you want to picture McDonald's. That's where you dwell with the Lord. Or maybe it's a place in your house. Or maybe it's simply watching your kids play. Or sitting at your desk. Wherever it is that you can be still amidst the chaos. Okay, so Psalm 84. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. My soul longs, yes, faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and flesh sing for joy to the living God. Even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young. At your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. Blessed are those who dwell in your house, ever singing your praise. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are the highway to Zion. As they go through the valley of Baca, they turn it a place of springs. The early rain covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. Each one appears before God of Zion. O Lord God of hosts, hear my prayer. Give ear, O God of Jacob. Behold our shield, O God. Look on the face of your anointed. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the one who trusts you. And so my prayer this weekend is that as you're having conversations in your small groups, as you're eating snacks, as you're listening here or singing or having giveaways, whatever it is, that your heart finds a place of rest, of retreat. Maybe it's in McDonald's, whatever it is, but you'd have a picture of what it means to be still in the now.